They said the day began like any other. Cars droned along the familiar intersection of Glendale Avenue and 59th in Glendale, Arizona. Impatient horns cut the morning air, and people sipped their steaming coffees as they headed to work. Yet, in a single moment, the routine shattered. A stray German shepherd stepped into the middle of the road, her posture protective, her ears alert, her gaze fierce. Drivers slammed on their brakes in alarm, confusion rippling through the crowd. Why would this dog risk her life to halt traffic? Then, as onlookers peered closer, everything changed. She wasn't simply standing, she was shielding something precious behind her trembling frame. The morning light was soft and golden, streaming through the dusty windows of nearby storefronts that opened onto Glendale Avenue. It was early autumn in Arizona, the kind of day where the desert heat still hovered on the horizon, but a subtle promise of cooler air teased in from the north. The paved roads shimmered under that sun, and the swirl of fine desert dust cast a gentle haze. It felt like any other weekday, ordinary and predictable. Traffic had thickened by 8 a.m., the usual crowd hustling through to reach jobs in the city center. Red sedans, white pickup trucks, a few city buses on their morning routes, and the occasional sleek motorcycle formed a line along Glendale Avenue. A tall man named Daniel Pearson, a Glendale resident for most of his life, was running late to his shift at a local hardware store. He sat behind the wheel, mind bouncing between to-do lists and silent frustration at the standstill. Suddenly, the slow crawl of traffic came to a complete stop. Daniel craned his neck, trying to see beyond the line of halted cars. More drivers honked in confusion. From the vantage point of his truck, Daniel noticed an odd sight. A dog stood in the very center of the intersection. He could make out the shape of pointed ears and the broad, muscular build typical of a German shepherd. She wasn't wandering aimlessly or trotting across the street. She was planted there, tail low, head up, as though daring the cars to move. It was an imposing stance for a stray, and it sent a ripple of curiosity through everyone stuck in that unexpected jam. Shouts and irritated calls rose from open windows, but the dog wouldn't budge. Her eyes seemed frantic, scanning each vehicle as if warning them not to proceed. Even from a distance, there was a palpable urgency in her presence. Some thought she might be injured, others assumed she had simply lost her way and panicked. Yet it took only a few seconds for Daniel's instincts, honed by years of volunteering at a local animal shelter, to notice that her stance screamed protectiveness, not fear. Something about the way she angled her body, half-turned, told him she was standing guard. He turned off his engine, ignoring the frustrated wave from the driver behind him. Daniel's heart pounded with a mixture of concern and compassion. He climbed out of the truck, stepping gingerly across the road. The warmth of the asphalt radiated through his thin sneakers, and he instinctively raised both hands in a calming gesture as he approached the German shepherd. "Easy," he murmured, voice low and soothing. "I'm not going to hurt you, girl." She bared her teeth not in aggression, but in warning before giving a sharp bark that echoed off the concrete walls. It was then that he glimpsed past her. Tucked against the curb, partially shielded by her large frame, were 4 tiny lumps of fur, puppies. The mother dog had somehow guided them onto the road's edge in a place that must have felt safer than wherever they'd come from. One was squirming weakly, while the others nuzzled close together. "Oh," Daniel whispered, heart clenching. "She's protecting her babies." Others, noticing Daniel's calm approach, began to exit their vehicles. Some clutched phone cameras, others seemed ready to help if needed. A few bystanders gathered on the sidewalk. The mother dog continued to bark, refusing to let anyone near those puppies without proper respect. Then, out of the cluster of curious onlookers, a young woman in a Glendale Police Department uniform stepped forward. Her name was Officer Caitlin Morales, a seasoned community officer known for her compassion towards stray animals. She too raised her hands to show she meant no harm. "Let's not frighten her any more than she already is," Caitlin said quietly, addressing the small crowd. "We don't know what she's been through." Drivers who'd been honking earlier now went silent. Something in the air changed. Impatience gave way to empathy. It's impossible to stay angry after all, when you realize a fierce mother is simply defending her vulnerable children. Daniel took another cautious step toward the mother dog, speaking in a gentle tone. "We're here to help, Mama. Let's get your babies somewhere safe." The shepherd stared him down, tension rippling through her lean frame. An old collar with no tags clung to her neck, tattered and muddy, revealing she might have once belonged to someone, but clearly had been on her own for a while. She smelled of dust and dried sweat. Her fur was matted around her hind legs. Beneath her eyes, the signs of exhaustion were unmistakable. With measured calm, Daniel slipped off the lightweight jacket he was wearing and crouched, letting the dog sniff at the fabric. She growled softly, but he held his ground, letting her see that he posed no threat. The puppies mewled, drawing the mother's focus back to them for a split second. Sensing a crack in her armor, Caitlin quietly called out, "We can get a blanket and some water in my patrol car. Maybe even a bit of dog food." A woman who'd been standing nearby her name tag, read Cindy's Bake Shop, stepped forward, rummaging in her purse. She produced a small bottle of water and, from her car, grabbed a spare plastic bowl. Carefully, she set it down on the street, poured the water, and backed away. The mother dog lifted her nose at the fresh scent. She waited, uncertain, before taking a cautious step closer to lap at the bowl. Her eyes stayed locked on Daniel as she drank, as though making sure he wouldn't dare approach her pups while her guard was down. A wave of tenderness washed over Daniel. He had no idea how long this canine family had gone without food or water, but she was determined to remain in control and keep her babies safe. That maternal devotion pulled on everyone's heartstrings. Bystanders snapped pictures. A few had watery eyes. Traffic, though still at a standstill, no longer seemed to matter. This moment, in broad daylight, had united strangers with a single purpose: help that brave mother and her defenseless litter. When Caitlin returned, she carried a soft blanket and a small, unopened bag of dog kibble. She placed both a short distance from the puppies. The mother dog finished drinking, padding back to the litter and sniffing the kibble cautiously before letting the pups sniff as well. One by one, the tiny fur balls ventured out, their fragile bodies trembling from hunger or fear, perhaps both. One was especially weak, stumbling as it tried to stand. "That one looks sick," Daniel observed, exchanging a worried glance with Caitlin. "We need to get them to a vet quickly." He extended his hand again, the mother dog watching him as if weighing his character. The hush that fell over the intersection was almost uncanny. Cars idled, pedestrians collectively held their breath. Finally, in a gesture that felt monumental, the mother dog sniffed Daniel's outstretched palm and allowed him a slight pat on her head. Her fur was coarse and tangled, but beneath all that was an unmistakable trembling of relief. "Thank you," Daniel whispered. "Let's get you all off this hot pavement." Ever so slowly, he reached for the nearest puppy, lifting it into the crook of his arm. The mother dog snarled low, then paused, seeing the gentleness in his movement. Another bystander scooped up a second puppy, while Caitlin carefully took the two others. The mother dog seemed torn, fearful of these strangers, yet acutely aware that they were offering help she desperately needed. With the puppies secure, Daniel and the others guided the mother dog onto the sidewalk. The Glendale Police Department had a policy for transporting rescued animals, so Caitlin radioed for a designated animal rescue van the city sometimes used for strays. Meanwhile, pedestrians helped direct cars into a single lane around the scene, alleviating the complete standstill. A handful of drivers, once they realized what was happening, rolled down their windows to donate more water or snacks for the dog. Concern rippled through the community. Some took pictures, sharing them on social media with captions like, "Brave stray mum saves her pups in Glendale," and "Mother dog blocks traffic to protect her babies." As the day wore on, word spread across Glendale, traveling faster than the dog had been able to corral her puppies. By noon, a small crowd had gathered near the bakery and hardware store, exchanging stories. Some recognized the shepherd. They said they had spotted her in the area over the past few weeks, scrounging around dumpsters. No one realized she was pregnant. Others claimed they'd tried to approach her before, but she always ran off. Now, it was clear why she'd taken such risks when her pups finally arrived. She needed a safer place, and she chose the traffic-choked intersection, not out of carelessness, but out of desperation. Finally, the Glendale Animal Rescue Van arrived, a white Ford with a bright blue city seal and big letters reading Animal Care and Control. A seasoned rescue worker, Tamara Phillips, stepped out. She carried a gentle noose leash and a metal crate lined with blankets. By then, the mother dog had let Daniel and Caitlin near her, but she was still too nervous for anyone else to handle her. The puppies had curled up in an impromptu nest. The weak one, in particular, had grown lethargic, its whimper so soft it was barely audible. Time was of the essence. "We'll take them all to West Glendale Veterinary Clinic," Tamara said, referencing a real, well-known clinic. "They do a lot of pro bono work for strays. We need to check the pups' vitals, vaccinate them if possible, and treat any immediate health issues. The mum likely needs a thorough exam too." Daniel gently lifted the puppies into the crate, layering them carefully so the littlest one was supported. The mother dog let out a yelp, pawing the air. She hated seeing them placed in a new container, but she let Daniel guide her in as Tamara gently looped the leash around the shepherd's neck, applying no pressure, just enough to keep her from bolting. Once the family was settled in the van, the mother let out a series of anxious whines. Daniel placed a hand near the crate's metal bars, and she pressed her nose against it as though seeking reassurance. "You did good," Daniel murmured, tears unexpectedly pricking at his eyes. "We'll make sure you're all right." With that, Tamara closed the van door. The crowd parted, a hushed awe passing among them, and the mother's dark eyes flickered with a mixture of lingering fear and resolute love. She was leaving the intersection that had been her fortress and her peril, heading into an unknown future. Yet there was something in her gaze, an ember of trust sparked by the gentle hands that now guided her. By late afternoon, Daniel found himself pacing the waiting room of West Glendale Veterinary Clinic. Sun-bleached posters of cheerful cats and dogs adorned the pale green walls. The clean, antiseptic smell of the clinic hung in the air. He tapped his foot on the linoleum, recalling the determined barks of that German shepherd and the frantic mewling of her pups. He had asked Tamara for updates, and, though she appreciated his interest, she gently reminded him that these things took time. The vet doctor, Margaret Hayes, would perform thorough checkups, administer tests, and see what they were dealing with. So, Daniel waited. He told himself he could have easily gone home, but a part of him refused to leave. Something about that mother dog struck him to the core. In her eyes, he saw a reflection of unwavering devotion, and it stirred memories he thought he'd buried long ago, memories of the day he'd lost his childhood dog, Buddy, to a sudden illness. That heartbreak had led him to volunteer at shelters, drawn by a desire to ease the suffering of animals without a voice. Time dragged on. Finally, Tamara emerged from the back, brushing stray fur from her sleeves. A faint smile tugged at her lips. They made it through the initial exam. Doc Hayes is going to keep the puppies overnight, just for observation. One is severely underweight and dehydrated. The others look better, but they've got fleas, parasites, the usual troubles. Mum's malnourished, but otherwise stable. Daniel exhaled, relief washing over him. That's good news. So, what happens next? In a perfect world, Tamara said, we'd find a foster who can take in the entire family until the pups are weaned. After that, we'll place them all up for adoption. But fosters are always in short supply. She eyed Daniel with cautious hope. You still volunteer at the Glendale Animal Shelter, right? He did. But volunteering was different than fostering an entire dog family. He lived in a small one-bedroom rental near the outskirts of the city. He wasn't sure his landlord would be thrilled about 5 dogs. Yet, the thought of the mother dog shaking on the hot asphalt, risking her life for her babies, tugged at him. I'd have to clear it with my landlord, Daniel replied. But maybe. Let me see what I can do. Tamara brightened. No pressure, but keep me posted. They'll stay here for a couple of nights, and then we'll have to figure something out. Before Daniel left, he peered through the small glass window to see the mother dog resting on a plush blanket, her puppies snuggled close. A vet technician was carefully bathing one of the pups, smiling as she toweled off the tiny creature. The mother dog flicked her ears, sensing Daniel's presence. He raised a hand in a half-wave, unsure if she recognized him. But her gaze lingered, calmer now that she wasn't on a noisy street. He couldn't read her dog mind, but he hoped she sensed the care swirling in that clinic. The next couple of days were a whirlwind for Daniel. He spoke with his landlord, Dale, an easygoing retiree who owned 3 rental properties in the Glendale area. Dale was initially hesitant. He'd let Daniel keep a single dog if he wanted, but 5 canines, 1 adult, 4 pups sounded like a recipe for property damage. Daniel, a man of quiet determination, bargained for a trial period, offering to cover any damages and pay an extra pet deposit. Eventually, Dale relented, though he warned that if complaints arose from neighbors, the arrangement would end swiftly. I appreciate it, Daniel said, shaking Dale's hand with a grateful smile. It's only temporary until the rescue finds them permanent homes. With that hurdle cleared, Daniel found himself driving back to the vet clinic, heart pounding. He would become responsible for 5 living beings who had nearly died on the streets. It was daunting, but also exhilarating. When he arrived, Dr. Hayes gave him a rundown of care instructions. The mother, who they'd tentatively named Sasha based on an old note scribbled on her ragged collar, needed high-quality, protein-rich food to regain her strength. The pups required monitoring to ensure they were nursing regularly. The weakest one, a little female with a white patch on her chest, had been given intravenous fluids. They named her Willow, her siblings Maple, Birch, and Aspen, following a tree theme that the clinic staff found endearing. That first ride home with the entire dog family was nerve-wracking. Tamara helped Daniel situate them in the back of his SUV, the mother dog's anxious whimpers filling the cramped space. Sasha's eyes darted between Daniel and her pups, as though struggling to decide if she trusted him. Daniel took care to drive slowly, cursing every pothole as though it might jostle the pups. Once he arrived at his modest home, he carried them inside, newly purchased dog bed and blankets in tow. He'd rearranged his living room to create a cozy corner for them, a large dog crate lined with soft bedding, open at the front, so Sasha could wander in and out as she pleased. The pups would stay mostly confined for their own safety, but Sasha could explore. She sniffed the new surroundings, nose quivering at every strange odor. Daniel watched her circle the couch, the coffee table, the worn armchair, until she finally returned to her puppies, who squeaked in hunger. 2 days earlier, they'd been huddled on scorching asphalt. Now, mother and pups lay on a cushioned bed, a far cry from the dangers of the street. Yet, the memory lingered in Sasha's wary glances whenever Daniel moved too quickly or a passing truck rumbled outside. She was a survivor, and survival had taught her caution. Caring for the little family was an all-consuming task. Daniel discovered a new routine: early morning feedings, cleaning up after the pups, ensuring Sasha had enough space to nurse. He'd wake at odd hours to check on them, half fearing he'd find one too weak to move. But each time, Willow seemed a bit stronger, the other pups a tad rowdier, and Sasha's eyes less clouded with distrust. Word got out through Glendale Animal Shelter's social media pages. Volunteers who knew Daniel congratulated him, while also joking that he might never get a full night's sleep again. A few expressed interest in adoption, especially for the puppies once they were old enough. Others just wanted to drop by with supplies, puppy pads, dog toys, spare towels. Daniel's tiny living room began to resemble a small-scale daycare center for canines. Sasha remained on edge around strangers, so Daniel limited visitors. However, one special visitor stood out, Officer Caitlin Morales. She had connected with Daniel that day on the street, and she couldn't shake her concern for the brave shepherd. During her off-duty hours, she swung by with a small bag of treats, wearing simple jeans and a T-shirt rather than her police uniform. Sasha tensed at the sight of Caitlin in the doorway, but Daniel gently placed a hand on the shepherd's broad shoulders. "She helped us," he whispered. "Remember?" Caitlin crouched down, speaking softly, offering a treat from the palm of her hand. At first, Sasha sniffed it suspiciously before finally taking it with a tentative snap. The dog's posture relaxed ever so slightly. The pups, oblivious to the tension, waddled around, gnawing on plush toys with comical intensity. Caitlin's face lit up. "They look good, Daniel. You've done well." "It's only been a week," he replied, "but they're definitely improving. Willow's putting on weight, thank goodness. Another few weeks and they'll be unstoppable." Sasha settled back into her bed, still keeping Caitlin in her peripheral vision. As the two humans chatted, they shared bits of their personal histories, how Caitlin had grown up in Glendale, always wanting to be a police officer to help her community, and how Daniel was from a family that moved around a lot before settling here. They bonded over a mutual desire to protect the vulnerable, be it people or animals. Their conversation held a gentle warmth, tinted with the soft whimpers and squeaks of the sleeping pups. Before Caitlin left, she ruffled Maple's tiny ears. "I hope someone good adopts them when the time comes." Daniel's eyes flickered to Sasha, who had drifted to sleep. "Yeah," he said quietly, "they all deserve a second chance." As the weeks slid by, Glendale cooled from the punishing summer heat. The desert nights became crisp, and the smell of autumn, faint but present, mingled with the dryness. Sasha's body filled out, her coat, once dull and dusty, grew shinier with proper nutrition. She grew used to Daniel's presence, letting him stroke her fur without flinching. Occasionally she even licked his hand, a brief, affectionate gesture that made his heart soar. The pups were a riot of energy. Maple, Birch, and Aspen scurried around the living room, tangling themselves in the new squeaky toys volunteers donated. Willow remained smaller, still more cautious, but she too developed a mischievous streak once she gained enough strength to keep up with her siblings. Daniel was careful to puppy-proof the home as best he could, removing loose wires, blocking off the kitchen with a baby gate, and shielding his battered furniture with throws. Despite his efforts, accidents happened: torn shoelaces, gnawed table legs, the occasional puddle on the floor, but he found himself laughing more than scolding. They were just pups, after all, exploring a world they'd never known. Late one evening, Daniel sat cross-legged on his worn rug while the puppies napped in a pile and Sasha lounged nearby. He scrolled through his phone, noticing the story of Sasha's rescue had gone viral in local circles. A local Glendale news channel even posted a short feature, "Stray German Shepherd Blocks Traffic to Protect Her Litter." The accompanying pictures taken by bystanders that day showed the fear in Sasha's eyes and the trembling pups at her side. Then there were pictures of Daniel and Caitlin approaching with caution, Tamara's rescue van in the background. all under the blazing Arizona sun. Reading the comments, Daniel felt a swirl of emotions: gratitude for the well-wishers, heartbreak for those lamenting how many strays needed help, and a tinge of pride in how Sasha and her pups symbolized resilience. Some commenters wanted to send donations, others asked about adoption. A few questioned how a dog could have been abandoned in the first place. Where was her original owner? Had she simply been lost? Sasha herself seemed oblivious to her newfound fame, but Daniel recognized that her story resonated with people. It highlighted a universal truth: that love and devotion exist in every corner of life, even on the streets. Amid this glow of transformation, challenges lurked. One afternoon, Daniel received a politely worded text from his landlord. Tenants next door complained about barking at night. "Please keep noise down." Daniel cringed, recalling the pup's occasional midnight yowling. He responded that he'd do everything possible to keep them quiet, but he worried. If complaints persisted, Dale might rescind permission to keep them there. He started employing extra measures: playing soft music at night, draping blankets over the crate to dim stimuli, and offering toys or comfort items. The pups, teething and discovering their voices, still had nights of uproar, but Daniel's efforts helped. Meanwhile, Sasha grew protective in a different way. Whenever neighbors or certain visitors came by, she'd stand between them and the pups. She never attacked or snarled unless truly startled, but Daniel realized that her street-learned vigilance was strong. She'd let people approach only after Daniel introduced them calmly. It was a balancing act, teaching her that not everyone was a threat, while still respecting her instinct. Despite these hurdles, the bond between Daniel and Sasha deepened. Each day, he watched her motherly devotion shift from one of desperate survival to relaxed nurturing. The pups played without fear, tumbling across the carpet. When they tired, they crashed in a fuzzy heap, Sasha supervising them with a contented gaze that could melt hearts. It was during one such tranquil moment that Daniel's phone buzzed. Caitlin again, only this time she had news. "Hey," she said softly, voice laced with concern. We might have found Sasha's original owner. Daniel's heart lurched. "Wait, someone's come forward?" Caitlin sighed. "Not exactly. We got a call from a woman named Linda Jackson. She saw the local news piece about Sasha and recognized her from a missing dog poster she'd seen months ago. The dog's original name might have been Roxy. Linda claims she saw an online ad about a lost German shepherd around the same area you found Sasha." A swirl of conflicting emotions tensed Daniel's gut. He had always known this was a possibility, that Sasha was lost, not abandoned. "Is the original owner stepping up?" Caitlin hesitated. "No direct contact yet. Linda didn't remember the owner's name, just that the dog apparently jumped a fence or got out. But there was speculation that the owner never actually looked for her after the first few weeks. We need more details." Daniel looked over at Sasha, resting serenely with her pups. If they abandoned her, they have no claim. If she was truly lost, it's complicated. "I agree," Caitlin said, "but let me follow up. Don't worry yet." The call left him feeling uneasy. He didn't want Sasha to be separated from her pups or returned to a neglectful situation. But if her original owner had truly been searching, it would be the right thing, provided that the person was responsible and safe. The question gnawed at Daniel's mind. What was in Sasha's best interest? Days turned into weeks, the pups now 6 weeks old. They had outgrown their crate, bounding around the house like unstoppable fur missiles. Willow, once so fragile, was nearly as robust as her siblings. Her timid nature shifted into a gentle playfulness. She'd chase Maple around the couch before collapsing into contented exhaustion. Sasha began weaning them, nudging them away when they tried to nurse too long. It was a natural progression, though the puppies often whined in protest. Daniel recognized that the time for adoption draws closer. Tamara from the shelter began scheduling visits for potential adopters. A wave of applications poured in, many driven by the viral story. While it warmed Daniel's heart, it also triggered the pang of impending farewells. Each pup deserved a loving home, but part of him wanted them all to stay an impossibility in his tiny rental. One crisp morning, Tamara arrived to evaluate the pups' readiness and show them to a family who'd expressed interest. The visitors, a couple named Martin and Beatrice, had a large fenced yard and a child who yearned for a puppy. They gravitated toward Maple, enthralled by her playful, outgoing spirit. Meanwhile, Aspen and Birch dozed in the corner, and Willow shyly peeked out from behind the crate. Sasha stood watchful, tail swishing low, letting them approach her babies only after Daniel introduced them. Martin and Beatrice asked a litany of questions about the pup's health, temperament, and any special needs. Daniel tried to be thorough, presenting them with each puppy's personality. The couple left, promising to fill out official adoption papers for Maple. It felt surreal, like this intangible concept of adoption had suddenly become real. The other pups had interested parties too, though none were finalized. Daniel swallowed the lump in his throat. Letting them go would be tough, but it was the right step toward building their new lives. That evening, Caitlin called again, sounding both relieved and resolute. We tracked down the previous owner's info. The dog is definitely Sasha Roxy, was her name. But I have some bad news. It appears the owner gave up looking for her after only a couple of weeks. He even moved out of state and left no forwarding address. So, no one's coming for Sasha. She's free and clear. Part of Daniel felt a wave of relief. Another part simmered with anger at the thought of someone abandoning Sasha that easily. Does that mean the shelter can place her for adoption too? Yes, Caitlin confirmed. She's no one's property but her own. Once the pups are old enough, she can find her forever home. Daniel glanced at Sasha, who nuzzled Willow's ear with maternal affection. Thanks for letting me know. Hey, Caitlin added gently, if I'm overstepping, forgive me, but have you thought about keeping Sasha? She seems really attached to you. Daniel was startled by the suggestion, though not entirely surprised. A corner of his heart had whispered that same question for days. I don't know. A big dog in my small place? And I've never owned a dog alone. My family always helped. On the other hand, yeah, I'm attached to her too. Caitlin's voice held a smile. Just think about it. You're doing a great job already. He agreed to do just that. After the call ended, he sat on the floor, scratching Sasha behind her ears. She leaned into the touch. Her big brown eyes, so expressive and deep, conveyed a silent bond he couldn't quite articulate. The puppy chaos around them momentarily faded into the background. In that gentle hush, Daniel felt a swell of love for this dog who had risked her life in the middle of traffic to protect her babies. She trusted him now, in ways she might never trust another human so fully again. Perhaps this was fate, he thought. Maybe Sasha and I need each other. The next week, Maple officially left for her new home with Martin and Beatrice. It was an emotional day. Maple bounced happily enough into their arms, but Daniel's chest squeezed as he watched her recede into the distance. Sasha seemed to sense something was different. She prowled around the house, sniffing at the spot where Maple used to sleep. For days, she appeared a little restless, as though awaiting Maple's return. The other pups, while not exactly depressed, definitely seemed to notice the absence of their sibling. But soon, the daily routine overshadowed the sorrow of parting. Birch and Aspen had meet and greets lined up, and Willow, though no less adoptable, hadn't quite found the perfect match yet. She was sweet but shy, and potential families often gravitated to the more outgoing pups. Then, unexpectedly, a gentle older couple visited. They were both retired teachers with grandchildren who visited on weekends. They fell in love with Willow's quieter charm, wanting a puppy who would lounge peacefully by their side, yet still play with the kids when they came over. Within days, Willow too was set to leave. In quiet moments, Daniel wondered how it would be once the pups were gone. Would Sasha be relieved to have peace, or would she pine for them? And what about me, he thought. He'd grown accustomed to the swirling chaos, the squeaks and yips, the endearing messes. Home would feel empty without them. One day, as Daniel was preparing dinner, Caitlin stopped by. The puppy's Willow still there for another couple of days. Birch and Aspen, rummaging for leftover kibbles, rushed to greet her. Sasha followed, tail waving in a gentle arc. She was excited to see Caitlin, a testament to how far her trust in humans had come. The air felt different that evening, quiet, calm. They chatted over coffee, the warm desert evening seeping in through the open window. At one point, Caitlin asked, "So, what are you thinking about Sasha? The shelter has started getting adoption inquiries for her, and Tamara asked me if you'd want to keep her. If not, they'll schedule meet and greets soon." Daniel set down his coffee mug, inhaling the rich aroma. He glanced at Sasha, who rested her chin on his lap. "I've been going back and forth. It's a big commitment. But the more I think about it, the more I can't imagine her leaving." A small smile tugged at Caitlin's lips. "She seems to have chosen you, and you've been caring for her and the pups from day one, basically. I think it's wonderful if you decide to adopt her. She deserves someone who understands what she's been through." Daniel nodded, emotion welling in his chest. "I can't imagine her in a kennel somewhere, confused and wondering where I went. If she wants me, I want her." Caitlin reached over to scratch Sasha's ear, and the German shepherd closed her eyes, sighing contentedly. "I think that's your answer, Daniel." Before he could second-guess himself, he texted Tamara, "I want to adopt Sasha officially." The response was near instant. "That's fantastic. We'll do the paperwork tomorrow." Daniel felt a swirl of relief, excitement and hope. He looked at Sasha, still resting her chin on him, and thought, "You're home now, really home." The day Willow left, Daniel teared up. The older couple, Ken and Martha, were kind and sweet, promising to keep in touch. They exchanged phone numbers, and Daniel's heart felt marginally lighter, knowing Willow would be cherished. A few days later, Birch and Aspen found separate homes too, each with families brimming with excitement about the new additions. Suddenly, Daniel's once chaotic living room was quiet. No more squeaking toys rolling across the floor, no more tiny paws padding after him en masse. Sasha paced a bit in the empty corners, occasionally sniffing around for her babies. Daniel soothed her with gentle pets, reassuring words, and extra walks through the neighborhood. Gradually, she settled into this new chapter, one in which she was no longer a mother in crisis, but a beloved companion. Daniel reveled in her blossoming personality, her curiosity for the outside world, her enjoyment of a good romp in the local park, her quiet habit of resting her muzzle on his knee while he watched late-night TV. She was still vigilant at times, barking when the mail carrier arrived, or when a strange cat crossed the yard, but with each passing day, the wariness in her eyes subsided. She found a sense of safety she likely hadn't known since she'd gotten lost. Meanwhile, the Glendale community that had rallied around her marveled at her transformation. Tamara posted updates on social media. The Glendale Animal Shelter thanked Daniel publicly, praising him for fostering and adopting Sasha. Even local news did a quick follow-up story, featuring a short video clip of Sasha playing fetch in Daniel's yard, tail wagging, a testament to rescue and second chances. Daniel couldn't help reflecting on how much he'd grown too. When Sasha first showed up blocking traffic, he'd merely followed an instinct he wanted to help. But the journey that followed tested his patience. his resourcefulness, and his capacity for love. He discovered that stepping out of one's comfort zone to protect the vulnerable can change a person. He also realized that caring for another being can heal old wounds. The heartbreak of losing Buddy all those years ago felt less raw. In its place thrived a renewed sense of connection. Caitlin became a friend, dropping by to check on Sasha and chat over coffee. Sometimes their talks strayed beyond dogs, discussing their families, their childhood dreams, their worries about Glendale's growing stray population. They even teamed up to volunteer at local events, handing out flyers about spay-neuter programs or microchipping to prevent lost pets from becoming strays. The bond formed in that intersection, under the blazing sun and the anxious barks of a determined mother dog, continued to weave their lives together. Sasha herself wore a new collar these days, a bright red one that Daniel had bought, complete with identification tags. The name tag read Sasha, but underneath that in smaller print was Roxy. He'd included it just in case there was any part of her past still inside her, yet she responded to Sasha wholeheartedly. Whenever he called her name, her tail would wag so hard her whole body swayed, eyes bright with recognition. Eventually, Daniel began taking her on car rides, wanting to replace her memory of that terrifying day in the traffic intersection with happier experiences. At first, she trembled in the back seat, but with gentle coaxing and short trips like to a nearby park or the drive-through window for a dog-friendly ice cream, she started poking her snout out the window, ears flapping in the breeze. They even drove past Glendale Avenue and 59th once, where it had all begun. Daniel watched her expression. She remained calm, though she glanced at that intersection with a quizzical tilt of her head, as if to say, "I remember, but I'm not afraid anymore." One sunny weekend afternoon, while strolling with Sasha through a dog-friendly farmer's market, Daniel heard a voice call out, "Oh my goodness, is that the famous mother dog from the rescue story?" He turned to see Cindy from Cindy's bake shop, the woman who had offered water on that fateful day. She stood behind a booth, laden with cookies and pastries, wearing a bright apron dusted with flour. Her eyes lit up, recognition dancing there. "Yes, this is Sasha," Daniel said, patting the shepherd's back. Sasha sniffed the air, picking up the sweet scent of fresh pastries. Daniel gave a small laugh. "You helped save her puppies, too. You gave us that water." Cindy reached over with cautious delight, letting Sasha sniff her hand before petting the dog's head. "I can't believe how healthy and beautiful she looks," Cindy murmured. "I've thought about her so often. People still come into my shop asking about that stray shepherd who blocked traffic to save her pups." What a story. Daniel explained how all 4 puppies had found loving homes and that Sasha was now officially his. Cindy's eyes glistened. "That's wonderful. Thank you for giving her the life she deserves." Sasha, too, seemed to remember Cindy. She pressed closer, letting the woman gently stroke her ears. It was a small moment, yet brimming with gratitude and closure. Here was one of the strangers who had stepped in during Sasha's moment of desperation, now reunited on a bustling street lined with cheerful market stalls instead of honking cars. It felt like the last piece of a puzzle clicking into place, reminding Daniel that Sasha's rescue was a collective effort, a testament to how an entire community can rally around an act of compassion. As autumn turned to winter, Glendale's nights became chillier, and the festive spirit of holiday lights shimmered around the city. Daniel hung a simple wreath on his front door, chuckling when Sasha barked at the plastic holly leaves the first time. The dog's once guarded nature had softened, replaced by a playful curiosity. She still had her serious side, but now she knew it was safe to let her guard down. One night, Daniel sat on his couch, sipping hot chocolate with Sasha curled at his feet. A light drizzle tapped against the windows, an unusual but welcome sound in the desert climate. Daniel closed his eyes, memories flowing. That first day he saw Sasha in the intersection. The scorching sun, the trembling pups, the uncertain bark that parted traffic. It seemed so long ago, yet it had only been a matter of months. The transformation both in Sasha and within himself was monumental. He recalled how he used to feel a little lonely in this house, spending most nights reading or watching TV in silence. Now, quiet moments like these felt peaceful rather than empty, because Sasha's presence filled the space with warmth. The soft sound of her breathing, the comfort of her weight resting against his legs, reminded him daily of the fragility and beauty of life. By the time the new year arrived, Sasha was thoroughly at home, her routine synchronized with Daniel's. Mornings began with a brisk walk through the neighborhood, Sasha proudly sporting her red collar, tail wagging at familiar faces. Afternoons, if Daniel was working, she waited patiently, greeting him at the door with a flurry of excited spins when he returned. Evenings were a time for gentle play or cozy relaxation. Occasionally, Daniel got updates from the adoptive families of Sasha's pups, pictures of them frolicking in backyards, riding in cars, snuggling with kids. Each update filled him with joy, especially seeing Willow, once so frail, now bounding after a toy ball, ears perking up at her name. He made a small collage on his fridge with the pups' photos, labeled with their new names or the families who cared for them. Sasha would stare at those pictures sometimes, tilting her head. Did she remember? Daniel wasn't sure, but he liked to think she felt proud of them. One evening, near the anniversary of their rescue, Daniel found himself strolling along Glendale Avenue with Sasha by his side. The sun was setting, painting the sky in streaks of orange and pink. They passed the intersection at 59th, where months ago traffic stood still for a mother's fierce love. Daniel paused, letting the moment wash over him. Sasha sniffed the air, seemingly untroubled by the memory. To her, that day was just one piece of the tapestry that led them here. He knelt beside her, ruffling her fur, as she gazed at him with those soulful eyes. "We made it, girl," he whispered. The pang of that day's chaos had morphed into gratitude. The streetlights flickered on overhead, and they continued walking, side by side, a silent understanding passing between them. In that moment, Daniel realized how even the smallest acts of compassion could have ripple effects. A driver stepping out of his vehicle, a police officer offering help, a community pooling their resources, a rescue worker with a kind heart. All these threads wove together to save a life, or in this case, 5. And the mother dog who once blocked traffic to shield her pups now strode confidently next to the man who had chosen to stand by her. Their bond was unbreakable, forged under the crucible of scorching asphalt, and blossomed under the gentle care of second chances. If anyone asked Daniel why he'd intervened that day, he'd simply say, "Because she needed me." And now, in ways he couldn't have predicted, he needed her too. Sasha's tale reminds us that courage and love can appear in the most unlikely places, even in the middle of a busy street. From the instant she blocked traffic to protect her newborn pups, to the embrace of a caring community, to the sanctuary she now calls home, Sasha's story proves that every life has value. By opening his heart, Daniel discovered not just the profound impact of compassion on one desperate mother dog, but a renewed sense of purpose within himself. Their unbreakable bond stands as a testament to second chances and the resilience of spirit that unites us all. If you found hope and inspiration in Sasha's journey, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who loves animals, and subscribe to our channel. Together, we can continue spreading stories of rescue, love, and the power of everyday heroes. Thank you for watching, and remember, every act of kindness matters.